and this is the Weekend Jazz Update with Yashani Silva. On this week's episode, it's about singer-songwriter and pianist Blossom Dearie. She's known for her great vocals and piano playing. She started out playing classical piano at age 10, but in later years switched to jazz music after she moved to New York and entered the jazz scene. In 1952, she relocated to Paris, where she started recording for Verve Records. She also founded a band called the Blue Stars. Blossom was famous for her unique vocals. She wasn't the typical jazz diva, instead her vocals were known for their soft, girlish sound. Also her piano playing, which laid the foundation for her voice. In the 70s, she also performed at Carnegie Hall alongside former bandmates of the Count Basie Orchestra and vocalist Anita O'Day. She was also the recipient of the Mabel Mercer Foundation Award, which is presented to outstanding supper club performers. So that was a bit of insight into what's coming up during this program. More details coming up. Also coming up, some trending festival and album news. And this is the Weekend Jazz Update with Yashani Silva. On this week's episode, it's all about Blossom Dearie. During this summer, we're going to be talking about her biography. Blossom Dearie had a soft, sweet-sounding voice and is widely regarded as one of the greatest supper club singers of her time. She was one of the greatest pianists, singers and songwriters in jazz. She took up music at an early age. At age 5, she started learning how to play the piano, and then in her teens, she took up classical music. She would also dance in school musicals. Some of her early influences included Art Tatum, Count Basie, Duke Ellington and Martha Tilton. In the mid-40s, Blossom Dearie graduated from college and began to pursue a full-time career in music. She started out singing and performing alongside the Woody Herman Orchestra. In 1952, she formed her own band in Paris called the Blue Stars. The group consisted of 8 performers, 4 male singers and 4 female singers. One of their earliest songs became a sensational classic at the time, a song called Lullaby of Birdland. She then signed up with Verve Records and began producing albums of her own. One of her best albums was My Gentleman Friend. She later began singing solo in the US, touring in local clubs and concerts. She also made several TV appearances, notably on The Johnny Carson Show and The Merv Griffin Show. She soon developed a style as a deeply emotional singer. She had a way of weaving her own intonation to any melody while remaining true to the original compositions. In the 60s, she also recorded for Capitol Records. One of her best albums was an album called May I Come In, a series of jazz classics portrayed in her own unique style. In the 70s, she started her own company called Daffodil Records. She also started performing at Carnegie Hall alongside former bandmates of the Count Basie Orchestra and vocalist Anita O'Day. In the early 80s, she toured and performed in clubs in Manhattan, notably alongside Dave Frischberg. She also began composing at the time. Some of her best compositions include I Like You, You're Nice, I'm Shadowing You and Hey John. In 1985, she became the first person to be awarded the Mabel Mercer Foundation Award, which is presented to outstanding supper club performers. She went on touring and performing in Paris, New York City and London until her death in February 2009. Blossom Dearie left behind a legacy as one of the greatest vocalists in jazz, with beautiful lush vocals and an ability to portray any classic with a beautiful cover. And this is the Weekend Jazz Update with Yashani Silva. On this week's episode, Blossom Dearie, her life and times and best hits. Now it's time for some trending album news. There's a great new album of her release called Insights. This one's by acclaimed composer and saxophonist Fabia Mantwell. The album's going up for release on July 25th. This album mingles jazz, classical and world music influences, featuring some of Mantwell's own compositions for a 32-person orchestra. The songs are performed by the Fabia Mantwell Orchestra. This album talks about a very introspective part of her journey. It talks about themes like trust, hope, love, featuring some great intimate songwriting and improvisation. Fabia Mantwell is a composer and saxophonist and bandleader hailing from Berlin. Her music's a mix of jazz, folklore, Americana, pop, classical and film music. The music opens up with some great string music that unfolds into a cinematic musical screen. Then guitar melodies join in and harp sounds. Gradually the entire orchestra joins in, giving the landscape a specific shape and depth. It's not a specific place or event being portrayed, but emotions like longing, curiosity and freedom. So this is a great album mingling several styles, cultures and traditions. For more information, please visit www.fabiamantwell.com. So that was some trending album news on the Weekend Jazz Update with Yashani Silva. We're going for a short break. We'll be right back after that. When we come back, we're going to be talking about some of Blossom Dearie's best albums of all time. And this is the Weekend Jazz Update with Yashani Silva. On this week's episode, it's all about the biography and best hits of Blossom Dearie. During this hour, we're going to be talking about some of her best albums of all time. Here's a quick recap of what's coming up. The first one's called Blossom Dearie, released in 1957. This album sees her performing a mix of French and English songs, many of them standards from the bebop era. She was also a very fine pianist, and her piano melodies are heard throughout this album. The music ranges from deep and melancholy to upbeat and joyful to quirky and funny. The next album is called Give Him the Ooh La La. This is the third recording that Blossom recorded for Verve Records. Like the rest of them, this one was made special by Dearie's vocals and subtle piano playing. Also her covers of rare contemporary hits. This album is a compilation of upbeat swinging songs and nostalgic ballads. Another album called Blossom Dearie Sings Comden and Green. The overall sound of this album is like that of a ballroom, larger than life and warm, a perfect complement to Dearie's hushed, intimate singing style. Dearie's singing is very versatile, articulating between a range of moods and emotions. And this is the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashan De Silva. On this week's episode, it's about the biography and best hits of Blossom Dearie. During this summer, we're going to be talking about some of her best albums of all time. The first one's called Blossom Dearie, released in 1957. So the story of this album begins in 1955 when Norman Granz heard Blossom Dearie singing and piano playing at a Paris concert. Blossom was already a leading figure in the bebop jazz scene in Manhattan. She was known for her amazing vocal range and unique voice. She had a unique style that was soft, slick, and tongue-in-cheek. So this album sees her performing a mix of French and English songs. Many of the songs are standards from the bebop era. She was also a very fine pianist, and her piano melodies are heard throughout this album. So on these tracks, she is accompanied by a star-class setlist. There's Ray Brown, who performed alongside Ella Fitzgerald, also drummer Joe Jones of the Count Basie Orchestra, and several backing vocalists. The music ranges from deep and melancholy to upbeat and joyful to quirky and funny. The setting was that of a supper club audience in Paris, and she had to mix the styles and themes to entertain them all. Two of the tracks are performed in both French and English, I Hear Music and I Won't Dance. Probably the best song on the setlist is a popular Bob Haymes classic called You For Me. This one's a great swinging tune with a great rhythm section accompanying it. By contrast, A Fine Spring Morning plays out as lyrical, deeply emotional, with a slow tempo and sparse accompaniment. However, not every song is lighthearted. There's a very nostalgic song called Lover Man, originally popularized by Billie Holiday. Blossom's singing on this song is very mournful and nostalgic to match the lyrics. She sings it in both English and French. Another mournful song that talks about themes like love and regret and longing. Now at Last, another Bob Haymes classic. There's also an instrumental, a deviation from the rest of the songs called More Than You Know, a Rodgers and Hart song. The next album is called Give Him the Ooh La La. This is the third recording that Blossom recorded for Verve Records. Like the rest of them, this one was also made special by Dearie's vocals and subtle piano playing. Also her covers of rare contemporary hits. Collaborating with her on this album are Ray Brown, drummer Joe Jones, and guitarist Herb Ellis. This album is a compilation of upbeat swinging songs and nostalgic ballads. Some of the highlights: Just One of Those Things and Between the Devil and the Deep Blue Sea. There's also some lesser-known songs like The Riviera by Cy Coleman and I Walk a Little Faster. Also a tribute to her time performing in Paris, the song Place J. Tombrassi. Her vocals are very peppy and upbeat on songs like the title track, and switch nostalgic and tender on ballads like Some in Love. Another album called Blossom Dearie sings Comden and Green. Accompanying Dearie on this album are Kenny Burrell on guitar, Ray Brown on bass, and Ed Thigpen on drums. The overall sound of the album is like that of a ballroom, larger than life and warm, a perfect complement to Blossom's hushed, intimate singing style. Brown and Burrell have a great performance on the song The Party Is Over. Also, Burrell has a very dynamic solo on the song It's Love, which starts off as a calypso and switches to a bright swinging tune. Dearie's singing is very versatile, alternating between a range of moods and emotions. There's a lilting swinging piece called Hold Me, Hold Me. Also a more solemn piece called How Will He Know. A beautiful nostalgic ballad called I Like Myself. Dearie becomes part of the music through her singing, taking the listener through a beautiful journey of jazz. And this is the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashan De Silva. On this week's episode, it's all about Blossom Dearie, her biography and best hits. Now it's time for some trending album news. There's a great new album up for grabs by acclaimed trumpeter Marcus Rutz. This one's called Many Moons. Marcus Rutz is known for his bluesy, soulful trumpet styles, and this album's a cross-section of that style. This is his 9th studio album. He performs the songs on the album alongside a Chicago ensemble. And this album's an abstract conceptual album that talks about the themes of time as symbolized by the cycles of the moon. Featuring original compositions by the group like By and By, Before We Met, Penumbra, and A Time to Spare. There's also some popular jazz classics that talk about the same concept like Blue Skies and Blue Moon. Collaborating with Marcus on the album are some of his long-standing collaborators Bryce Winston, Cheryl Cassidy, Greg Ward, and others. The music features saxophone, brass, trumpet, and percussion. The music is all about providing a break from reality, taking the listener through a soundscape of time, inspiration, and solace. For more information, please visit rutsmusicworks.com/manymoons. And that was some trending album news on the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashan De Silva. We're going for a short break. We'll be right back after that. When we come back, we're going to be talking about more of Blossom Dearie's best albums of all time. Stay tuned.